You want that zombie tone, that haunting lead, that massive soul-crushing rhythm section, but you are most likely leaning on the positive grid AI like it's a magic 8-ball, hoping it will spit out a miracle. And don't. It is about as accurate as a guaranteed stock tip from your brother-in-law who dabbles in crypto. It's better not to rely on it and do it yourself. So today, I'm showing you the exact step-by-step workflow I used to build this 90s masterpiece from scratch. A positive grid gave you hundreds of pedals and amps, but they didn't give you a map. So think of me as your consultant for this mess. I've spent months grinding out my Spark cheat sheets and my Spark tone guide, which you can find on my website, by the way. So I've already done the R&D that most of you are too busy to do. I've distilled the chaos into a proven process that works every time. And we are going to build two distinct tones from Zombie, the singing lead and the wall of sound rhythm section. And by the end of this, you'll have a repeatable system to stop guessing and start building great tones yourself. And well, we'll definitely run into some issues too, like why does the heavy rhythm tone initially sounds like a blender full of rusty paperclips, while the original feels more like a physical weight on your chest? Tone building involves some trial and error, sure, but this step-by-step process gives you the structure needed to actually reach the final result instead of just wandering in the dark. I'll show you, even if you pick a wrong amp, how to course correct and make it right. Now, before we start, we should really listen to the full track, but we can't because YouTube's copyright bots are more sensitive than a Coldplay fan at a yoga retreat. But no worries, I have something better. I have the isolated stems for the lead and rhythm parts, and hopefully we won't get a strike for that. So let's listen to those first. The lead is bright, it sings, and you can't really hear the pick hitting the strings. It's also right on the edge of breaking up. And the rhythm, well, it is a wall of sound. It's got that really low end that hits you in the gut and sounds impossibly wide. So let's go to work. Step 1, the input protocol, which means select your guitar and pickups. So don't just grab whatever guitar is leaning against your wall. We start with the guitar and pickups because this is the actual DNA of your sound. So for the lead tone, we're going to use my Strat, middle and neck pickup. We need that single coil chimey brightness to cut through. And for the rhythm part, we're going to use my Telecaster with humbuckers. Bridge position, we're going to be pushing massive gain, and single coils give you that 60 cycle hum that sounds like a microwave, and we need that thickness only a humbucker can provide. And with the guitar selected, we move to step 2, the engine, which means selecting your amp and building the core dry tone. And the biggest mistake you can make in a Spark app is going from left to right like you're reading a menu at a diner. No, you need to jump straight to the amp. The amp is the engine of your tone. If you pick the wrong engine, it doesn't matter what tires you put on the car. And this is also the hardest choice you're going to make and the easiest one to get wrong. But don't feel bad if you have to cycle through 3 or 4 options. This isn't failure, you're just honing in your core tone. And originally for the lead, I tried the AC Boost. It's a Vox AC30 model, but the Spark version has way more headroom than I expected compared to a real Vox. I kept slamming the front end, but it stayed cleaner than an HR-approved Christmas card. It just wouldn't break up properly, and we need at least some attitude for this tone. So I swapped it to the British 30, which is based on an orange 8030. It really lives in the crunch zone and provides that specific 90s alternative grind. Settings I used for the amp is gain at 4, bass at 6, middle at 7 to make it sing, and treble 5, 5.5. Let's hear our dry foundation. And for the rhythm, I initially went for the tread plate because most of you think heavy means Mesa Boogie, but that was way too tight and controlled. Zombie needs a really loose and massive low end, so I switched to the Checkmate, which is a Vox AC15 amp, and this changes the strategy completely because I let it act as a clean pedal platform. We're going to let the fuzz pedal do the heavy lifting later on. Amp settings are gain on 4, bass on 8, middle at 3 to scoop it out. And yeah, let's hear this one. And don't forget, we're going to use it as a pedal platform. So at this point, it will sound nothing like the original. Now you just saw me take a wrong turn with that AC boost and the tread plate, and in the past that one mistake would have cost me like 20 minutes of scrolling and frustration, but this time I used my new decision maps to course correct in second. I just updated the Spark Tone Guide on my site to include this full visually metro style maps for every amp and effect category. So instead of guessing which of the many pedals and amps to select, you can just now answer 2 simple questions and the map leads you to the exact solution you need. It's a complete logic-based workflow to help you build great tones. So check it out, but yeah, let's get back to the workflow now. Step 3, noise management, basically setting the noise gate. We keep it standard and simple for both tones. A threshold at 2 with a low decay. We want to kill the hum without killing the soul of the performance. And then step 4, dynamic leveling. Control the dynamics with a compressor. And on the lead part, the sustain comp, which we're going to use, isn't just a pedal, it is a requirement. We need the guitar sound to sound like a sustained beam rather than a plucked string. We're essentially flattening the note's profile. It's like an executive summary. We're cutting out the unnecessary details at the start so we can focus on the long-term results of the sustain. We want the note to arrive already at full volume and stay there. So settings on the sustain comp, level at 7 to slam the front end of the amp, sustain at 6.5, attack at 4 to hide that pick attack. And yeah, at this point, we should already be pretty close to the original. Let's listen. And for the rhythm part, we're actually going to skip the compressor. The fuzz pedal we're going to add next compresses the signal so intensely on its own that adding a compressor would basically just raise the noise floor. Step 5, gain structuring. We shape the grid and focus with a drive. We use a drive pedal to provide the saturation and grid that the amp's bass tone isn't delivering on its own. And we're employing 2 distinct strategies here. For the lead, the drive is in a supporting role to the amp. For the rhythm part, the drive takes the lead role. And the lead amp alone wasn't saturated enough, so adding a tube drive gives us that focused mid-range boost and that extra grit we needed to make the tone sizzle without completely breaking up. The settings we're using here are overdrive on 5, level 7 and tone on 3 to keep it smooth. Let's listen, you should hear the near breakup. And for the rhythm tone, we use the guitar muff, and this one is the workhorse of the tone. The big muff is the king of fat. It provides that loose, sludge-like low end that really fills the entire frequency spectrum. It creates a texture that feels like a solid wall of noise. And the settings here we're using are sustain on 7.5, tone on 3, volume at 6. So let's listen, and this will instantly transform our rhythm tone in something that's already a lot closer to the original. And on to step 6, texture modulation, choosing between utility or decoration. And for the lead, we need a chorus pedal to provide that watery, haunting modulation that defines 90s alt rock. Without it, the riff feels too dry and literal. And I first tried a digital chorus pedal, but it was too hi-fi and transparent, it had too much polish. So I swapped it for the cloner, which is a small clone model. It's darker, chewier, and adds that synthetic texture that sounds more processed. Settings here are simple, rate at 2 and keep the depth low. And you'll immediately notice the cloner doesn't just add a standard chorus effect, but it will also make it darker and less chimey and polished, which is exactly what we needed to get closer to the lead tone. And on the rhythm side, we're using the guitar EQ to artificially inject the thump that was missing a bit. We're purely boosting the bottom end to make the guitar sound huge. Settings are just slightly boosting the 100 Hz and the 200 Hz sliders. Moving on to step 7, temporal logic, adding depth and tails with delay. Now, most of you treat delay like cheap cologne. You spray it on everything to hide the fact that your bass tone hasn't showered in a week, but yeah, don't. Delay is not an effect you should just add as a default setting. It is more of a surgical tool. And in this case, we do have two distinct use cases that actually serve the song rather than just masking poor playing. The lead needs a digital delay to create a rhythmic trail that fills the space between the simple notes of the riffs. And settings here are BPM to the same as the song, which is 84, mode on 500 milliseconds, And for delay time, set it to 16 notes for that rhythmic bounce and keep the feedback on 3. Let's hear it. And for the rhythm tone, the delay is the secret ingredient here. It's the reverse delay, which is a bit of a wacky pedal that usually doesn't have all that many use cases, but here it's essential to complete the signal chain. You might not notice it initially, but the original track has this like subtle effect where it almost sucks the chords back into the speaker after you hit them. Without this, the tone is incomplete. So settings for the reverse pedal are BPM off, because we aren't looking for a rhythmic repeat, we want an organic reaction, time to about 400 milliseconds and decay to 0. And that's non-negotiable for this effect because we want a single reverse swell that pulls back in and stops immediately. And then finally mix at 3.5. And with that, we have our final rhythm tone. We're not going to add any reverb because that would just muddy up the tone. So let's hear our final product. And as the last step, step 8, spatial integration, simulating the physical space with reverb. And for the lead, I chose the whole ambient reverb. It is a bit smoother and less realistic than a standard room reverb, which kind of fits the atmosphere of the original track. It acts as the glue for the whole sound. For the settings, we keep level low at 2.5, time on 5 and dwell at 7. And with that, our lead tone is complete, so let's hear the final product. And there it is, a repeatable, logical workflow. What do you think? Did we get close enough, or would you have made different selections? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'm out.